Hello, possums. Dr. Lena coming from Australia. So it's time for deal or no deal. And the answer would be no deals anywhere. So now we're 7 months into the regime and stuff. Small countries aren't making deals, middle-sized countries aren't making deals, and the big countries certainly are not making deals. Now, China and India, the biggest countries in the world. So we're now, I think, halfway through the threat, and the Yeti, aka Taco Tits, thank you, Jen Walsh from iHip. Taco Tits has caught on. I love it. Now, he has said to China and India, you're not to buy any more gas or oil from Russia. If you do, there'll be a 500% tariff. Well, they're big countries with huge industries, and of course they're going to keep getting gas and oil from Russia, right? 500%. You can imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and China said, if you buy any more oil from Saudi Arabia, we're going to put a 500% tariff. Can you imagine how ridiculous and threatening that would be? So my question is he going to taco out on this? I suspect he is, but we'll have a look. And I'm reminded of the Australian economist, Justin Wolfers, who's fabulous. If you haven't seen him, Justin Wolfers, he's on all sorts of programs now. But he tells the story a few months ago where he watched the news, tariffs were at 45%, I think, for China. But he went and had a shower, he came out, and they were 150%. One shower later, and now 500%. Does he just make these numbers up out of his bum? What does he do? There are no calculations here. There is no diplomacy. There is certainly no negotiation, none. Threat, spit, stamping of Yeti hooves. It's pathetic. If it wasn't so serious, it would be pathetic. Okay, so let's have a look. China and India, I'm doing it together. What's going to happen with the time that they've got? Will the Yeti cave? Will he change the number? What'll he do? Okay. Oh, upside down cards. The card of victory. Wonder what that's talking about. I'll also be using the Italian cards as well. Oh, quelle surprise, the tower. Yeah, well, look at this. I think in the Yeti tradition, he's going to claim a victory just because he decides he's won. He's like those kids when you go to their birthday party and everything's rigged. They always win the pass the parcel or something. It's that puerile. It's a great victory, great victory. Oh, you've never seen a victory this big. Okay. Followed by the tower. Because we're all over the world, since Thatcher and Reagan, we're all dependent on cheap Asian goods, right? So if he goes ahead with even a percentage of this, so the tower is not going to be good for American consumers or world consumers. Hello. They're defending themselves. They have to. They're big nations. They've got much bigger populations than the US of A, so they're going to fight. And this is going to leave the Yeti impoverished yet again, impoverished in a moral sense, in a leadership sense. He's going to continue to make millions by the hour with, because it's like any pyramid scheme. He'll get on the bottom of the pyramid and make lots of money with crypto, with, you know, power, with any sort of power, you know. I'll just have a quick look at the Italians here with the Italian cards. Oh my God. I'll just pull a couple of these just to get a bit more flavor in here. Trusted friends. That's um, China and India with Russia. They're both heavily connected, not just in terms of where they get their energy, but politically, big geopolitical friends and fidelity. Now, speaking of Russia, now, the problem with the Yeti not getting any of these deals up, hasn't got a ceasefire, hasn't got a peace plan, hasn't got anything to show for his time in office except tasteless chandeliers and turning the White House. I can't help but think when I look at the Oval Office and around the White House, it does look like a brothel in Dubai. It's just shocking taste. Oh, it's terrible. Where was I? Oh, one of the more serious aspects of him being thwarted, he's not getting anything. So he puts stupid people in big positions and then doesn't get a result. Okay. So now, like I was saying in the last video, he needs a war. And we know that the destroyers are heading to Venezuela. But it gets more complicated and probably, who knows if yet he's even seen a map of the region. But Venezuela is next door to Guyana, and Venezuela is already making a play for Guyana's land and minerals. Guyana is much less militarized. Hmm. So it could be like the US forces do a thing like in Grenada in the 80s. But when they hit up against Maduro in Venezuela, what happens when a dictator meets a dictator? Well, he's got, well, according to a quick look I had, about 120,000 roughly armed troops. He has a huge paramilitary to draw on and a reservist army. He is also backed by Russia. Now, let's have a look. No, I'd rather move on to the second part of this, which I think is the new news. We'll keep an eye on Venezuela, but I would like to know how the troops are feeling. How are the troops feeling? Because I know those who have military families have been told deployment in September. It's actually happening. Please, not another baby. What are the troops feeling? I mean, they've been force-fed Fox Media at every base for as long as I can remember. Obviously, it's not one block. There's going to be every sort of opinion in there, but how are the troops feeling with this? Look, I think at this stage, look, I think we're a million miles from a mutiny of US troops or anything like that. I think how they're dealing with it is depending on each other. There's Four of Wands, can be the marriage card, but it's like he might be crazy, but we're in this together. We're trained, we're doing our thing together. There's this bonding, which is profound between active service members. They feel at this point it's not going to be too bad. So what they've been told or hinted at or whatever. They're not expecting, I don't think, to have to go boots on the ground and penetrate the jungles of Venezuela. It's like it'll be all right. Mhm. But those who think about things, who do follow politics at some level, who have some better insight, who have some bigger picture, and there's a lot of educated soldiers as well, particularly in the officer class, etc. They know there's a secret agenda and the magician. So look at this, two majors. I don't know how secret the secret agenda is, probably not very, because armed services who aren't particularly happy, there will be leaks. But the magician is, I think they're being told this is going to be in and out like that. And it may be, and it may be. But is it right is another story. Okay, but the magician is quite a powerful card and the card of transformation. So what could start small, could get big, or it's a fluid state that we have to be alert to. But I think why, because the occupation of DC isn't working either. You've got all these National Guards sitting around going, how long till I can get a hamburger? And can I get it in peace without JD Vance or the Yeti coming in? That's not working. So while we're going to be looking at Venezuela in the next few weeks, I think this is just a gut feeling from me that he's going to make a play on Mexico, possibly drone strikes, and say, oh, we're just bombing the cartels. I'm just putting it on record. I think he's going to make a play for Mexico as well. So one of the viewers suggested possums for peace. Don't you love that? I think we have to embrace possums for peace. Okay, good. Now, here in other news, God, there's so many notes. People to look out for too. A few people reminded me, I watch her and have forgotten to mention her. Heather Cox Richardson, she's an historian. She's following everything in detail, so she's good to catch up with. Um, Now, consumers in the US are about to pay $3 to $6 billion for the privilege of having the coal-fired power stations keep going after their expiration date. Welcome to our world. Australia also does this. And this is the problem with nuclear plants. I've talked about this before. They have a use by date. They cost billions to decommission, so they don't decommission them and they keep running them. The same with coal-fired power stations and associated industries. Because not enough money is ever spent on doing them cleanly, don't let them tell you about clean coal, doesn't exist. And we're the biggest coal exporter, I think, in the world. Last time I looked, we do know about this stuff. So we too, we could, I think we have 30% renewables, depending on your state. We should all be at 100% and feeding back into the grid. But no, coal lobbies. Anyway, that's my whinge about that. Um, Now my next thing was, Tom Hartman, Tom with two M's. I was watching him last night, and he was saying Tulsi Gabbard, head of national intelligence, is sacking 50%, 50% of the intelligence agents in the biggest agency in the world. 50% gone to just put loyalists in, or maybe even not replace them, or whatever. This means for the rest of the world, no one's going to be happy sharing intelligence with the US if you've got these SEAL trainers and crocodile wranglers running national security. But an even bigger point, Tom Hartman said, was why did I have to find this out on UK news? He hadn't heard about it in the US. So let me know, guys, have you heard about it in legacy media or not? We're not talking little firings around the edges, 50% cold coal. Crazy. She's always looked suspiciously, I will say, the gossip has, she looks awfully like an agent for the mother country, doesn't she, really? She's always had weird politics. But she's not stupid, and that's why she's more dangerous, of course, than a lot of them, because she has a working brain that she is applying to an evil agenda. They're always worse. Okay, so let me have a look at that. Tulsi Gabbard, what's happening? And this is all at the same time. This flood the zone. You can't keep up with it all. Tulsi Gabbard and the sackings. Tulsi Gabbard and the intelligence session. Okay. Well, they're not going to be happy. All right. I think obviously federal government workers, it's one of the reasons you go into that career is because you've got a job for life. One. Two is allegedly most of these roles are meant to be non-partisan. And I think largely are, Dems and Republicans come and go, but the long-term professional spooks and spies, if you read all the crime novels I read, um, spies, but also analysts and also strategists and all types of skill sets are there over decades. And this is just pulling the plug on this. So, of course, they're not going to be happy. Even if they're offered a payout, not going to be happy because they know how important this is. I think this will be one of those, she'll do the mass sackings and then realise she'll have to hire half of them back again. Because the problem with these people, it was like Doge or anything else, they think these people just get a salary for turning up to work. Now, I digress, we've all got stories of government workers we've known who might be lazy and drag the chain, I'm sure. There'd be a handful of them in every department. But most people work hard and they know they have a job that has a function. I think they'll have to get them back. They'll be hogtied, if you like, after these sackings. King of Wands is going to come in. I think this is someone high up in intelligence is going to have a conversation with Tulsi, a very serious conversation with Tulsi. Are you fucking crazy? What are you doing? You're making the country vulnerable. It's emboldening every enemy of the US. We're already in a trade war with 190 countries, and you're doing this? I think there's a bit of, I won't say plotting behind the scenes because that sounds sinister. I think it's necessary. This is behind the scenes stuff where they're talking with each other, going, how can we lessen the blow? Who can we keep in? How can we deflect this directive? Working together to try and save the country from the nominated head of the department. I mean, that's their jobs now, people in all these important positions in the Pentagon and everything else. And you're left with these buffoons. It's horrifying. Okay, now, um, oh yes, want to say. Would want to say. Now, with the GOP still groveling, still groveling. letting him get away with anything. I think a movement should be started to reverse the immunity um, thing that the Yeti was given. If you give a madman immunity like that, it can also be rescinded. And whether it takes 5,000 lawyers in the biggest amicus brief in the history of the legal world or people power, that can be reversed. And unless and until it's reversed, everything else dies in the courts that are doing the right thing by the time it gets there. Now, the Supreme Court don't work themselves to death. They can only take on so many cases, but they will take on the key cases for Project 2025, like saying it's okay to gerrymander. But now we get to the good bit. Let me have a slug of coffee. Gavin Newsom's still rocking it. Now, my thing is this. Whoever is the next leader of the Dems, and I think we're still miles out, and I'm not saying it should be, has to be Gavin. I'm Australian. It's your call. What I am saying, though, very clearly and happily, is he's setting the tone for how you fight back. And he is personally massively powerful because California's economy is so gigantic and it's not easy to manage an economy of that size. And you're not going to please everybody. So I think it's important with the next, whoever becomes the next head. I think David Packman was saying this the other night. What he wants to see is a really good, tough primary debate leading into this and see who emerges. So it's not about, oh, well, I did like Gavin Newsom, but then he went on Charlie Kirk and I like this, but I don't like that. It's not actually about that at this stage. What is super important is he is fighting back and he is cutting through. And the images of him as Superman and everything else, but tongue in cheek, are just hilarious. Okay, so meanwhile, dear Bernie, too, he's still putting in the hard yards. Bless Bernie. You know, because his message, and to a certain extent AOC or any of the real progressives, is, I think, and it's the same in Australia, we have to ask ourselves as societies, why do we produce electricity? Is it to give people power in their home, or is it to make a very few people very rich? Should we be building houses for people to have roofs over their head, or should we be suppressing the housing market so there's competition and a small number of people can make vast amounts of money? There was another example here that I was thinking of too. That, yeah, I mean, healthcare, you change the question, do we have healthcare to help sick people or to make a couple of industries mega rich? And if we all ask those questions and the answer is, oh, it should be like this and it could be like that, we've got to learn, and I'm talking as an Australian too, to say no. Our housing crisis is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And we need government interventions, I think, a suite of interventions. I won't go into the detail now, but it's not one thing. Building new houses will solve this. No, 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 no. We've got to look at multiple occupancy. We've got to look at reclaiming inner city dead commercial real estate for residential. We've got to consider rezoning. We've got to consider how people get mortgages and what you need for a deposit and all of that because of housing bubbles. But the UK is struggling with this too and not coming up with answers. And we really need to get our voices out there. So that's enough of that. So let me finish with you guys. All right, here we go. What would be helpful for you to know in the next few days? Oh, sorry, I digress again. I'm preoccupied with Mexico because a couple of the young people I know have been in Mexico these last few months, and I really hope they get out. But you can imagine MAGA, right? If they start bombing cartels, it's going to be, well, where's my fentanyl? They're going to be upset about that. Anyway, moving on. Don't forget my tip, read international news. You can get quite a bit free. Independent UK, the Australian newspapers, not Murdoch's. Germany puts out an English language newspaper. A lot of Latin American countries do too. Start reading the international news and find out what's going on next door or under your feet. Okay, darling, possums for peace. Let's see for these few days. Yeah, working together. I think we got that last time. Okay, now with this, people working cooperatively. Remember, I was talking before in the Tulsi Gabbard bit, but I think this even came up when I was talking to you last time. And I've got something to add in a minute. Let me just, oh yeah, I think I found it. Okay, so working together. It can be online if you're people phobic. There's nothing quite like meeting people. You know, now, when people say, oh, I've learnt the tarot cards watching you and all the tarot readers, I have a bit of a gulp moment because the cards have become so sort of twisted because we're dealing with these foul creatures. And when you come to read for normal people, you've got to shift back to the traditional interpretations. So, Johnny Tarot's apprentice fabulously. Oh no, it was Hogarth. Beg your pardon, Johnny. Sorry, Hogarth. Stinky fish in the cup, in the gondola in Venice. Okay, but the traditional is very different. The fish can represent surprise news, but also it was the early symbol of Christianity before the cross. Hello, Christians who think it all started yesterday week, bigger history. For 300 years, the image of Christianity was not the cross. But anyway, so it can be your spirituality, is what I'm trying to say. Lot of water, because I set these cards in Venice in the One World Tarot. Lots of water. Water is your creativity, your intuition, your your imagination. It's music and the arts. It's all those things, right? So spend some time doing those things, those good things. King of Swords. These two are sort of opposites. This one's very intellectual, very clear-sighted, very rational, and we all need to be. These times are stressful. But we also need more of this in our lives to balance the news and the other stuff out there. The final card, Four of Pentacles. Don't do anything rash with your money. So, excuse me, that doesn't, I mean, you can spend in certain ways that are beneficial and sensible. So, for example, if you and your apartment block or your extended family or a group of friends or a group of work colleagues, if you say, okay, let's buy groceries in bulk to save us all money, that's the sort of thing that saves money. So your outlay may be more, but ultimately it's going to save money as these things go up just about every time you blink. So See, he's even got his feet on the pentacles. But pentacles are not just money, they're resources. So be resourceful. Okay. Now, I'll leave you with that. And I'm really enjoying the comments. So keep it up, everybody. And just know I'm sending you big love from Australia. Take care, guys. Look after yourselves. Bye for now.